Welcome to K-Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. It's the last day of February, so I am going to be announcing some show dates for March. On March 10th, I will be at the Stand Up Comedy Club in Bellflower for the Slanted Comedy Show with Walter Hong, Aiden Park, PK, and Dante Chang. March 19th, I will be at Santa Monica's High Los Angeles Santa Monica Hostel for the Comedy in English show. That starts at 8:30 p.m. March 20th, I will be at the Pasadena Comedy Club at 7 p.m. I'll be doing a longer set that day. March 22nd, I will be doing an online show with Applause Stream. So you could follow them at Applause Stream on Instagram and find the link there. But it's called the Laugh from Your Living Room show, which is at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. March 30th, I'm going to be in Chicago at Zany's. I will be there at 8 p.m. And then shortly thereafter, you could catch me at Discount Therapy at Burke's Public House, which will also be at 8 p.m. So I'm going to be doing a show back to back. I want to give you an update, you guys. I have nothing new going on. I got nothing new going on. I feel like I haven't really given an update on my podcast. I was sort of going through my earlier podcast episodes, and man, my monologues were long back then, like super fucking long, because I was just yammering on and on about all these personal problems, and it's like a tad embarrassing if I'm completely honest with myself. But on the other hand, it's also not embarrassing at all because I was where I was, exactly where I needed to be at the time. And I was working things out by speaking into the microphone, speaking into a public forum about life and about society, about questions around being an artist and artistry and creativity. And man, I have to hand it to you. You guys really have great listening skills, because I couldn't listen to most of that shit. I was like, good God, Grace, just put it away. Just stick it in your diary. And the thing is, I journal every day. I journal every day, and yet I still needed to talk. I journal every day and I have therapy and I still needed to talk. And I have friends and it still wasn't enough. It's never enough. But I think in the last, I don't know, maybe a couple of months, my monologues were shorter because I was just so preoccupied with writing my book. And I think a lot of stuff was getting processed through that. And I've been trying to make creative writing more of a regular routine ritual for myself. Like shortly after I finished the first draft of my novel, I still had the sort of the creative juices flowing, and I kept writing short fiction. I was writing a bunch of short stories, and that has now slowly slowed down, but I still am trying to write at least one short story every few days. So I do that. And I'm still reading very slowly. I'm very slowly digesting uh, the Estes book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And it's really weird because each chapter that I read, I feel like it's exactly the chapter I'm supposed to be reading in the time. So right now I'm reading this chapter about rest and the importance of rest. And I just never give myself a break ever. I find giving myself a break to be this enormously guilt-ridden experience, and it just doesn't have to be, because that's the ebb and flow of life. Like creativity lives and thrives, and then there's a moment where it dies. And that death doesn't mean it's a permanent death. It just means there's a cutoff point, and then there's a time for rejuvenation and relaxation and revitalization. And that period of rest is crucial. So I haven't gone to get a massage therapy in a really long time, like in several months, I guess since the fall. So I called my go-to spot, because I used to go to this spot in North Hollywood, and I always go to the same masseuse June. And when I called to make an appointment, they said June no longer works here. And it was such a shock to my system because I was like, fuck, like I haven't, like I just I took June for granted. I took that therapy spa for granted, and I thought June will always be there for me. And she's not there, and there's no way to find out where she is, because I don't know where she what like went to work. So anyway, I went to a place in Sherman Oaks to get my massage therapy, and um boy was it painful. I mean, boy did I miss June, because June, she would be like just just tough enough with me, like, because I have these really terrible kinks in my upper shoulder and my neck, and I've had migraines this past week, which I haven't had in a while. And I like June just knew how to adjust and accommodate my body very well. And like she just always personalized the experience. Like she would tell me like how my body had changed since the last time we worked together, or she would tell me like how some parts of me are more flexible than last, or how some parts are a little bit more, like tight than last. And like she was just very good at personalizing the experience and adjusting to my body. Whereas this lady, my God, I mean, boy, does she brutalize me, like I feel like I have bruises, and that's when like the masseuses, they're good at their job, but they're not good at like accommodating the client, like meeting me at my needs. Like she's not so good at that. She's more like insistent on her method. And that to me doesn't make a very good massage therapist. So I'm not sure if I'll be going back to that particular masseuse, but I did like the location. I mean, I liked the spa in general. It was like clean, it was very upscale, it made me feel good. But I think taking steps to this kind of self pampering is a proper way of dealing with this rest period, because I'm very keen on like getting to my next project. Like I think I mentioned here on this podcast, I want to work on my K drama school book again. I'm back on that shit. And I'm like frustrated with myself because my words are not flowing as easily as they did with the novel. And it's because I just haven't the energy. The energy is diminished. So I'm thinking of going to another spa tomorrow, not for like like a body massage, but I'm gonna go to a Korean sauna tomorrow. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Spend all Spend the whole day at the Korean sauna, get some work done, get some bodily relaxation done, just pamper myself, like eat delicious food and watch some Korean dramas and take a nap, and I don't know, maybe I'll do a face pack and then go hit up a couple mics, I think that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. And I'm excited. I'm excited. And I hope you guys figure out a way to pamper yourselves too. No matter where you're at or what you do, I think now at this very moment is the perfect time for you to go and pamper yourselves. How's that? How's that for a radical idea? Okay, you guys, the show I'm going to talk about today is called Producers, and it is a 2015 KBS drama written by Park Ji-eun, co-written with Kim Ji-sun. Now, Park Ji-eun is the writer of many Korean drama hits like My Love from the Star. Who doesn't love that one? Everybody knows that one. The Legend of the Blue Sea, another huge one. Crash Landing on You. Boom. Everybody knows Crash Landing on You. Big, big hits. Park Ji-eun has roots in Korean sitcoms and comedy programs, so she wrote for several sitcoms, including Great Friends. It starred Yoo Jae-seok, Nam Hee-seok, and Lee Hee-jae, who are three very major 1990s comedians. And I didn't even know that these comedians did a sitcom together back in the year 2000. I had no idea that Yoo Jae-seok did a sitcom, and I've been looking some up on YouTube, and they're terrible, but for the times, like I'm sure they were something. I mean, no, actually, they were terrible. Like in the year 2000, I don't know what I watched. I think I watched like um uh 새 친구? Three Friends, 세 친구, like that was a good show, I think, that I used to watch in the year 2000. In any case, sitcoms were huge back in the 1990s, but by the mid 2000s, they were kind of drying out. They were not so much the trend anymore. And studio variety shows became extremely popular during that time. So game shows. Starring with celebrities like celebrity regulars and celebrity guests like K-pop idol kind of machinery thing. Like that's what was happening in the mid 2000s, and they were all hosted by Yoo Jae-suk. So Yoo Jae-suk stopped doing sitcoms, and he went and did that. And to this day, Yoo Jae-suk is still the go-to MC and host in the Republic of Korea. Park Ji-yoon wrote for several variety shows as well. She wrote like something like 7 or 8 variety shows. She also wrote for radio programs. So she's done a diverse range of work as a TV writer, and her comedic work explains why her dramas tend to have a comedic tone in them, right? And this is something you see in all the shows that I mentioned. They're all more like dramedies rather than pure dramas. So Producers is set in the building of KBS, Korean Broadcasting System, and it's a self-reflexive show where it digs into the KBS variety show department's culture. So it's a mockumentary hybrid where you see characters speak directly into the camera, speaking as if they're analyzing the tendencies of the industry and its flaws, but there are also dramatic moments where characters appear to be unaware of the camera's presence and they just kind of let things, just pan out. So it's hard for me at times to follow what perspective we're looking from. Like, what's the lens that we're looking at the situation from? But I think it's a good show. You have lots of cameo appearances, like Shin Dong-hyuk is in it. Shin Dong-hyuk was huge in the 90s. He's still a big major MC and host, but Shin Dong-hyuk made it big through the sitcom 남자 셋, 여자 셋, Three Guys and Three Girls. Lee Young-ja is also in it. She's a huge like like 90s, early 2000s like comedian, like female comedian. She was the one. Youngja was the one. Chun Hyun-moo is in it. Jang Hyuk is in it. Park Jin-young or JYP, he's in it. Sandara Park is in it. Minu is in it. Jisoo is in it. Even the Oscar-winning actress Yoon Ye-jung is in it. And there are over a dozen more cameos, and it is a very, how do I say, it calls attention to itself through its celebrity cameos. I wrote about this show in my dissertation, and I call it the industry's love letter to viewers, which shows the grueling efforts and lengths that TV producers and industry workers, particularly in the variety show department, go through in order to deliver a show to viewers. So shows like 1박 2일, right? 2 days, 1 night. That's like a very demanding set to be on because people have to stay up all the time. They're hungry, they're overworked, they're not sleeping enough, they're tired. So it really goes to show the dramatic lengths that these producers go to in order to deliver a show. This is a star-studded cast. You have IU and Kim Soo-hyun. Okay, Kim Soo-hyun, everybody knows from My Love from the Star. He's also in It's Okay to Not Be Okay. So it's a Hallyu star-studded cast. Very beloved actors, but I would say Kong Yoo-jin and Cha Tae-yeon are more beloved and well-known locally, and Kim Soo-hyun and IU are perhaps bigger Hallyu stars. I personally love both of these actors, though. Kong Yoo-jin she's a Hallyu hero of mine. Cha Tae-yeon I also adore because he's, forever in my heart from that movie My Sassy Girl. I think they're excellent performers, and they're also amazing comedic actors. Their comic sensibility and timing is really like just spot on. And I think honestly, they're better actors at this point in time in the year 2015. They're better actors than IU and Kim Soo-hyun, and that just goes to show that time and seasoning plays a role. The show also offers a self-reflexive expose on the difficulties of a K-pop star through IU's character Cindy, who was working as a K-pop idol since she was a teenager, and it shows the loneliness as well as the mental and physical challenges that stars undergo to maintain their careers as K-pop stars. It also shows the tension that artists have with their managing agencies, which hold way too much power over young artists and their careers. And this is all based on real challenges that K-pop stars face when working in the music industry in Korea. They have very little power because the managing agencies are vertically integrated, where agents, managers, lawyers, coordinators, and everybody who works for the star are employed by a single company. And this makes it hard for artists to protect their own rights because, like if your law department is part of the company that hires you, then of course they're going to defend the company. They're never going to defend the artist and their rights, right? So there's a conflict of interest as an artist signing up for that kind of deal. So anyway, it makes it hard for artists to protect their own rights, and Cindy's character exposes some of these difficulties. It also shows how KBS is structured and managed as a public broadcaster and how it's overseen by network elders. So these are former PDs who are now retirees, who now work as the Korean Communications Commission board members that push censorship and call in employees for penalties or scoldings for certain artistic choices made on a program. So if somebody was wearing an inappropriate outfit, so to speak, usually a woman is like, oh, she's like too exposed. Okay, then they're going to get called upstairs. If somebody says a lewd word or makes a disgusting reference, then they're going to get called upstairs, right? So a lot of these producers on television, they make an effort to self-censor themselves because they don't know exactly what is going to offend the elders upstairs, but they do their best to guess, and then when they fall, then they do have to go upstairs. And I interviewed a former SBS radio program PD, and she said that when they get called upstairs by the KCC, usually they have to write like a pansangmun, which is like, it's literally a letter where you like self-flagellate, like you're like, oh, like I'm a bad person because XYZ and this is what I did wrong and I'm so sorry. It's like an apology letter that you write for your supervisor but also for yourself. It's very infantilizing actually, and it's embarrassing. If I had to do that, I would be furious, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason why they make you do it, is to treat you like a child and is to humiliate you. And I don't know, like I feel like Koreans are really good at that. They're really good at shaming you through humiliation, by making you feel like an idiot or making you feel like a child. I mean, they're really good at that. They're experts at that. Anyway, Producers is a very interesting show. It's very brief, only 12 episodes. I was very surprised by that, but it's essentially a fusion of a variety show with a Korean drama. So you're getting a Korean drama, but you're really seeing the inside back channel of how a variety show is produced and what happens on a set like that. And yeah, it's an interesting show if you want to understand the industry as a whole in a sort of a lighthearted way. Today's guest is Kate Cheka. She is a British stand-up comedian. I met her in Berlin. Kate and I co-produced a comedy show called Woke Panties when we were in Berlin, and we had some amazing comics in that lineup. It was an amazing show the first time we did it, and it was in an amazing venue. Like everybody on the lineup was a woman of color. The host, the venue host, they're all also, it was like the venue was run by women of color, and it was in Wedding, which is this lovely neighborhood in Berlin, and it was just such an amazing show. Like, and it was all donation based, but we all made a lot of money that night. And then we went to this excellent bar just down the street that I remember. It was like a castle. It was so beautiful. And like, I just remember having such a great time that evening. And that will forever be a part of my memory with Kate Cheka. And Kate is currently in London, kicking ass, working as a working comic, and she's writing and she's doing amazing things. So let's talk to Kate Cheka. We're in London now?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I'm in sunny old London. Not that sunny.
How long have you been there? Like, I mean, when did you leave Berlin?
I left twice actually. It was they want to break up. You know when you break up with a kind of abusive boyfriend and then you go back to them and
Yeah.
then you have to break up with them again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I left at the beginning of the first like bit of pandemic and like lockdown, and I was like, I'm gonna go home to my mum, look after her, she's alone. Did that. Then things opened up. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go back to Berlin. I love Berlin. Went back to Berlin. Lockdown hit again, and I was like, mm-mm. I'm not here for this. So I went back to my mum again, and then we got sick of living with each other because there's only so long you can have a like 73-year-old as a housemate before you're like, oh my god, no. So then I
Yeah.
moved to London.
Okay. What are you doing in London these days?
Comedy, the thing that we know each other from.
London has a more how do I say? Like a more rigorous kind of scene, right?
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say that people are like more like better at comedy or anything though. Because of that, I feel like in Berlin, people were like had very original comedy, which I quite enjoyed, and there were a lot of people doing it just for like the fun of it, and like I quite liked Berlin. The Berlin scene. London is like very competitive for sure, but I don't
Mm.
know if I think it breeds better comedy. I feel like I shouldn't slag off the scene that I'm now a part of. Everyone here sucks. They don't. There's a lot of really good comedians that I enjoy
Yeah.
very much, but I don't know if I feel
Yeah.
like it's amazing comedy per
Mm.
se. Not all of it.
Mm.
Some of it is obviously. Some of it's
Yeah.
way better than Berlin, but
Yeah.
some of it isn't.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think that's true of like all these scenes, like I mean it's like
Yeah.
London is pretty well respected for its comedy scene because it's done in the English language and you have people like Ricky Gervais and like, that other guy. I forget his name. I mean
We do
Eddie
have that other
Izzard.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Eddie Izzard's also huge. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right. Like uh just because it's more rigorous and competitive doesn't necessarily mean or equal to greater comedy or better comedy. I think sometimes it does. Um, but yeah, you're right. There were a lot of original comics in Berlin. And I think that
Yeah.
is what made it quite lovely. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so comedy in
I
London.
feel
Isn't it way more different there though? Like in
different
terms
in what
of
sense?
like I mean, you don't get a free beer at every single show. I mean, every
You
single
barely
mic.
you no one is giving out free drinks, which is maybe the reason I'm actually angry. Maybe it's nothing to do with the competitiveness and the lack of free drinks because I love a free drink. There's a lot of ways people try and make you pay to perform
Yep.
in subtle and less subtle ways, which I also don't love. And I loved about Berlin was, yeah, you could always pick your line up. They didn't care if you doubled up, if you're running around town doing a couple a night. They always
Yeah.
gave you a free drink. It was very
Yeah.
nice and like I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I imagine you have, if not similar, like certain kinds of stories about that difference between Berlin and LA.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is sort of what makes the competition um, apparent is that in LA, New York, you don't have to buy a drink or pay $5 in order to get stage time. Whereas in Berlin, they pay you through either a drink or they give you like a couple of euros just to say
Mm.
thanks for putting on a show, even if it's an open mic, meaning it's
Yeah.
really, I mean, the audience is doing us a favor, but there is
Mm.
this sort of respect and appreciation for the performer. And I think that's what made Berlin's comedy scene somewhat nurturing because,
Yeah.
uh, you know, as comics, we are putting our ego on the line every time we go up on stage. And that's a risk that we're taking. And in these cities like New York and LA and London, they're like, well, fuck you and your ego. You can either suck or you can be great or you could be mediocre, but it's all up to chance. And fuck you, like let's see how much you can take. Let's see how much of
Yeah.
this shit you can take until you actually stop. So then in these cities it's more about showing up and doing the work and sticking around rather than enjoying it for the love of the thing or the craft or whatever the
I
fuck,
know. But I feel like that in comedy, which is in such a way such a pure art form, it's immediate. You go on stage, they either like it or they don't. They laugh or they don't. They'll let you know straight away, and you know whether you did well or not. You can't hide behind it. You can't like paint the picture, and then a bit later, one reviewer likes it, one reviewer doesn't. Like, it's on the whole, they either were with you or they weren't.
Mm,
I think it's a shame to make something that is primarily about fun and joy to be so like rigorous, and to really like trying to weed out certain kinds of people that maybe don't have like the stamina or resilience for it, because they don't believe that just because people are sensitive or don't have the kind of that resilience makes them bad comics. They don't think that is something
yeah.
that naturally correlates.
Mm-hmm.
um I do think, I imagine that London would be maybe better than the US
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like you progress quite quickly. Like, you get more time quite easily. You go from your 5 to your 10 to your 15, and that happens quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then you do an hour in Edinburgh within like the first few years of you doing comedy. Whereas
Yeah.
from what I know of the US, obviously I haven't been there. I'd love to
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
It takes like a long time before you get your hour,
Mm-hmm.
out there in the
About
world.
10 years. Yeah. Yeah. And I think in general, yeah, it should take about 10 years. Um, because
10 years.
yeah, I mean 8 to 10. I would say 8 to 10 for an hour, yeah. Because I don't know, like everybody writes at a different pace, you know. There's some comics who write every single day. There are some comics who write every once a month, you know. There are comics that I see in LA who've been doing the same 5-minute set for like 2 years. You know, like I see some of that too. And it's really like a matter of how much you're writing. And just because you write everything doesn't mean that all of it needs to be in your act. Um, and it doesn't always mean that everything in your act is going to land with everybody either. I think the reason why it takes 8 to 10 years, I'm just going to say 10 because that's usually the more typical thing,
Mm,
is because comics need to take their material around and tour it and see how their material lands with a variety of different audiences. And depending on what region you're in, what part of town you're in, what the demographic is like among your audience members, that landing is going to vary greatly. And I think that's why it takes comics so long to figure out like what their act really is and what their voice really is, and to know for sure that this is something that works in every single room, and not a lot of their stuff from that hour is going to work in every single room if they've only been doing it
mm,
for a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's got to take 8 to 10, whereas where they take it all around the country or the globe and they figure it out, you know. And I think that's why um yeah, like when I go to Berlin, like I treat it like boot camp and I'll write 45 minutes of new material. But when I bring it back to the States, about 5 to 10 minutes of that is usable. And then even from that there, about half of it I chop out and I lose anyway. So yeah, it's humbling, I would say. I think comedy is very humbling.
for sure, for sure. It'll
Yeah.
kick you down, like, kick you in the teeth to let you know when it doesn't,
Yeah.
when it's not feeling you.
Yeah. But last time I saw you in Berlin, you were working on a degree. Um, and did you
Yeah,
finish it?
I did. I literally, no one's asked me this because I don't think anyone knows no one in London knows I was doing my master's. But yeah,
Yeah.
I got my certificates. I went home just after Christmas and my certificates were there. I graduated with my master's from the Humboldt University, Berlin.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool
That is
that it's
cool.
done.
Congratulations on that. Yeah. I mean, are you like working or anything, or are you just living the comics life?
Mm, no, right now I'm just faffing around doing comedy, doing some writing. I wrote a book that I actually wrote the book before I started ever doing comedy.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been really a book then; it was too short. But
Uh-huh.
I wrote a thing, and
Yeah.
then during lockdown, when I couldn't do comedy, I sort of dragged it off of the file on my laptop and dusted it
Yeah.
off, and
Yeah.
yeah, was like redoing stuff with that,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's sort of like it's weird. It's a weird book. It's like feminist sci-fi fiction. All the men are in cages, an
Yeah.
ongoing theme, and ambition of my life, I would like to probably add.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I sent it to a lot of competitions. It started to get a bit of traction. It gets shortlisted for things. It won a prize recently. Got
Mm,
£500, which is cool.
that's great.
Um, so it's yeah. I'm in one of these kind of in between phases of post degree. We're gonna chuck some stuff at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah.
Comedy seems to be going quite well in London.
Yeah.
I got an agent
Yeah.
a few months ago, so that's pretty
A
cool.
touring agent or a
Yeah,
talent
it's a
agent?
yeah, like a comedy agent. So
Okay.
it is the Comedy Store, which is it's their management. So the main comedy club in, or like the most well known of the comedy clubs in London, in the
Yeah.
centre of town.
Yeah.
I did
That
a spot
that comedy
there, and they
store
signed
is
me.
not affiliated with the LA Comedy Store, is it?
I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
they're separate entities.
Interesting. That's great. Congratulations with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Touring is so important, and that's fun. It's fun to tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing any show dates coming up?
Around London,
I mean,
just
or
wherever.
yeah,
I
outside of
mean,
London?
yeah, yeah. I've got a couple outside of London. I'm run right now, like running around doing mainly tens, 15s, working on that, working on something to do split a bill within Edinburgh, because the system really here is, I think, that you spend a year sort of writing new material, and if you become
Yeah,
like an established comic, you've been going for 6, 7 years, say,
right.
you would be working every year to get a new hour for Edinburgh, because you don't tour it around as much. You would do it like at smaller festivals like Brighton Comedy Festival, I think it's Brighton
Mm,
Fringe, Leicester Comedy
mm-hmm.
Festival, all of these places, and then you would take it to Edinburgh. And in Edinburgh, it's like you have all the reviewers there, you have all the comedians there, everyone is all there, and then you do your hour every single night for a month,
Mm,
and you hope that you get reviewed and someone sees you and they're like, we love you. And I think that's the plan for me now, is to like go to Edinburgh, maybe not for the whole time, but do like maybe a split bill or jump on a lot of other people's shows, and
yeah,
just sort of like gauge what the vibe is. And
yeah. That's
yeah, see if anyone
exciting.
likes me.
That's really exciting.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you have a game plan. Yeah.
I have a game plan for the year. Yeah, I went out with my agents on Wednesday. It was really weird because I called the meeting. I was like, "Hey, it's the new year. We haven't really like chatted, and I was thinking if we could have a meeting to like see what's happening." And both my agents are both called Simon, and so it was like me, Simon, and Simon. And then me and Simon were having coffee and tea. The other Simon arrives, and he was like, "Why is no one drinking? We're all having a drink." So I was like, "I can also have a Bloody Mary. Happy to drink in the day."
Yeah.
So I love a drink. So we were chatting, and then it was just like, "This is what we think would be good for you at this stage. We just don't want you to get so burnt out that you hate comedy." That's what they're
Ah,
trying to avoid. Their whole thing is like, don't burn Kate out so that she hates comedy and doesn't want to do it anymore. They just
yeah.
want me to be like happy doing comedy and not push me too hard, but also get me whatever they can get me. So I mean,
Mm,
I like them, but I like anyone that buys me drinks. So
yeah.
that's really the slight problem with my life. I'm very easily manipulated. So by feelings.
Interesting. It's interesting that your agents are wary of you getting burnt out by comedy. I mean, have you ever felt that? Like you feeling burnt out by comedy at any point in your life?
All the time. All the time.
Really?
I regularly burn myself out. Yeah, because I go at
Really?
it really hard. Like I'll
Yeah.
do 5, 6 shows a week for like 3 months, or like spots,
Yeah.
and I'm running around town.
Yeah.
And then I get to the end of 3 months, and I'm like, if I have to tell this same story again, I will punch someone. Like I'm so angry and so done, and I don't. And then you just stop caring about the audiences. An audience can sense it if you don't care about them. And so then I just
Yeah.
like take myself off for a little holiday, and then I come back, and I'm like, all right, refresh. Let's go again. Let's get some new material. Let's see where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable, right? It's inevitable because for the audience, like whatever you're saying is new to them. But
Yeah.
like that's the thing about jokes is they get old so fast, right? Like like my favorite way to write is as I'm writing, if it cracks me up, then I know that it's a joke. And I love that first crack up. And then like for a couple times there it'll be still fun, And then eventually
Yeah.
it's just like, I hate this joke. Yeah. But
I
for
hate
them, it's
saying
always
this.
new.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
For them, it's always
Yeah, for
new.
sure.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, the burnout is literally like, are we boring ourselves? Yeah, that's what that is.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's yeah, it's that. Or like I get fed up with the certain politics of comedy scenes. Like I not so much in
Uh,
Berlin, maybe. I mean maybe a bit, but like it's the other stuff around it I can't deal with. Comedy does attract a certain kind of
mm,
ego-driven man that I find
yeah,
very exhausting, and it attracts a lot of quite
for
gross
sure.
predatory men. I find
For
that
sure.
stuff quite triggering and quite exhausting as a
Yeah,
woman to deal with.
for
So
sure. For sure. Yeah, that's
yeah,
everywhere. That's that's like a lot of there's always a lot of that. Yeah, it's the worst. Oh my God.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I want to know more about this book that you wrote though. So it's a fiction, it's a sci-fi, and
Yeah.
it's in this sort of like feminist utopic world where women have the power and men don't. And um like, what compelled you to start writing this? How long have you been working on it? What is your writing routine like? Yeah, I want to know more.
So I wrote it. I was living in India, worked for my master's. I was studying at a university in India, and India's got a quite right wing government right now that was making a lot of uh, universities are like often by nature quite inherently left wing, and it was doing a lot of stuff to shut this university down or to change things, and like very real things like shutting down the sexual harassment committee in the university, for
Oh, wow.
instance, so that like there were women who made cases and then these cases were like kind of closed and then reopened by other people without their consent. A lot of stuff just like was going down, and I was living there with my best friend Sanskriti, who lives there, and I was staying in her room, and I just had been given this kind of chunk of time where I hadn't finished my masters, and so I still had like bits of money coming in, like not money that you could like, it's like students kind of money. So about £500 a week, not a week, a month. Imagine if it was £500 a week. I would love that. But yeah, I was living on about £500 a month, which is like really okay to live on in India for sure. And
Okay.
I thought, oh, okay, what would you do if someone had given you this when you were like 16 and you had to work and whatever? And I realized I would have like written or I'd have done something creative to try and find a way of making like money. They always say don't write a book because you want to make money. And so I started writing this book, and I had a friend who said we should write a feminist science fiction together. So I
Mm,
started writing it for her, and so it's written all as though I'm dressing this friend who was like had been in India but was no longer in India, because that was the case. She had been in India, she was no longer in India. She's from
mm,
California actually, and so I wrote it all as though it was addressed to her. And then it just became this habit I got into, and often I would write it when I came home late at night after I'd been drinking, because I do like to have a lot of a fun. I'm a fun time drinking girl, so I'd write it like that, and then in the morning see what was like good to keep and so on. So a lot of it just was,
mm,
yeah. And then at some point, I guess like a year later, and then I went through a period where I was very angry at men because I got treated very badly by one man. And
mm.
then sometime around the autumn of 2018, I just sort of smushed it all together, and it was about 40, 50,000 words. And I was like, huh. And I pretty much kind of tucked it away on my laptop, and then started doing stand-up comedy maybe a couple of months later in Berlin. And then I asked a couple of friends to read it, and one friend of mine said she read like a beginning of it, and then she said, oh, you should apply for this competition that Penguin, the publishing house, was doing. And I applied for
Yeah.
that competition, and it got down to the final 50, and that's when people sort of like within that kind of world started saying, editors at Penguin started saying, you should look for a literary agent, you write very
Yeah.
well, this has the potential for something, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So then now I feel like it's there, and I don't know if something will happen with it or whether it'll end up coming into the world. And the sentiments and the feelings that I felt when I wrote it don't apply so much. I mean, bad men are still a problem in my life, but they don't I'm not quite in the same headspace or the same feeling as I was when I wrote it, but
Right, right.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, some art is not always for public consumption. Like you said, like some
Mm,
jokes are, not, even if they
mm-hmm,
work, they're not for the audiences, they're for you or whatever. Like, I do
mm-hmm,
really believe that. But
mm,
then on the other hand, it would be quite
yeah.
nice to have a book, I guess.
That's interesting. It's similar to like getting tired of your own jokes then, right? It's because you're
Mm.
no longer in agreement with that, or you're no longer the same person as when you wrote that joke. And like it could have been a week later or 3 days later, and you're a different person by then. Of course, you're in a different headspace by then. But if the joke is good and it lands, and it still does, and I think it's applicable here with the book as well. I
Mm.
think a feminist sci-fi is like a definite genre. It's like a definitive genre. And that's the kind of thing that literary agents and publishing houses like. They like definitive genres. They like definition. They don't like vague, could be anything, boundaryless, borderless, ambiguous kinds of texts. Um, which is ironic because like a lot of modernists were that, like James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, and
Yeah.
but it's definitely there's definitely a market for it. So I think you should give it the full life that
Mm.
it has potential for. Like if it has the potential for a full life, why not? Even if you're not in that headspace. In fact, if you're no longer in that headspace, you're in a healthier position to market it and sell it, I would say. That's how I feel. And if you took it as far as this competition with editors telling you that this has potential, then you should really, really give it the full go,
Mm.
rather than say that, well, I'm not the same person anymore, so why? And I understand that because I was revisiting some old authors that I really loved when I was in my 20s. Like I really loved Bukowski, for instance. Like I read all of his novels and poems when I was like 22. And then I was when I was in college, I read a bunch of like Kurt Vonnegut books. And then recently, I was trying to reread one of Bukowski's books. It's an autobiographical novel. Well, all of his books are autobiographical, but it's more like a beginning to end autobiography. It's called Ham on Rye. It's a very beautiful book. And I was trying to revisit that because I was working on my own autofiction, and I couldn't read it. I was like, I'm really over this person. Like the window
Mm.
in my ability to access this person's head and voice is closed. And so I stopped reading it. And then a friend of mine lent me a book written by Vonnegut called Slapstick that I never read. Like I had never seen this book, and he was like, "Oh, it's like a beautiful book." And it was like a first edition. It was like very like physically a beautiful thing. So I read the first few pages, which was the prologue, which was really beautifully written. It was very moving. And then when the actual book started to go, I was like, yeah, like I'm not interested in any of this, so I just returned it.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that's similar to when we're writing something. Like we can't access it anymore as the writer and fall into that world, which is what we do when we're writing. Like you would write at night and then edit in the morning, and you were absorbed in that world, and you were able to like create things, add things, move things around. But now it's like you have this distance from it and some dryness from it. And that is probably the best position to be in, to edit it and give it structure and start writing query letters to agents, because you don't
Mm.
have this preciousness around it, and you're able to be a little bit more deliberate in being like, well, I'm focused on the marketing aspect now, which is hard to
Yeah.
do if you're so attached to the work. So yeah, I say write the query letters. I say find that agent. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a couple of agent letters. I've all had like very nice rejections. I've had one ask the whole manuscripts. It's all very like, a lot of them are like, we think it's a great idea. We just don't think it's for us, which I understand because it's a controversial book as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, query letters and getting an agent is no picnic. I mean, you have to write dozens, if not hundreds. Yeah, and it's like finding
Yeah,
a
I've
soulmate.
written
It's
like
like
three,
finding,
so yeah.
yeah, that's nothing. That's just a drop in the bucket. You have to write a lot. So I say keep doing it. Don't get discouraged by three rejections, you know. Um, I mean, you will feel the
Thank you.
discouragement and the
That's so
rejection, but get
encouraging.
over it, like put on your big girl panties and get over it. Because having a book, it's a credit. It's a credit and it will help your comedy career. I'm sounding so LA right now, but
You have
that's
a book, right?
that's a thing. Yeah, I do have a book. I do have a book, and it was very difficult getting
Yeah.
that book out. And my book is in no way commercial, and it's in no way a definitive genre. It's very vague and ambiguous, and it was a hard sell, but I still got it out, And I wrote
Yes.
that when I was like 23, and then it
That's
was out by when I
crazy.
was like 27 or something. But it took a long time to get it out,
Yeah.
and I say give it the full life that it deserves. Yeah.
Give it
Yeah.
a good old college try.
Yeah. Yeah. And if all the literary agents say no, then the next step is to look for small publishing houses because they work
True.
directly with authors. And smaller publishing houses might be a little bit more daring because agents, they're well-meaning and their goal is not to take care of you. Their goal is to make money, is to sell you. You have
Yeah.
to keep that in mind. They say we don't want to burn out Kate. They're not saying we don't want to burn out Kate because we love her. They're saying we don't want to burn out Kate because we need her to stay intact so that we can get as much money out of her. So
It's
think of
true.
but that's the bottom line. Don't ever, 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 ever be naive about agents. Agents don't know shit. All they know is how to schmooze and then get contacts and they can open up gates and doors. That's their
Mm,
job. That's why you get an agent because they're willing to be an asshole and
yeah.
be a
On your
dick and
behalf.
be, yeah, on your behalf. We need that as artists. But I'm never naive about my agents, like my representation. Like they don't care about me and my personhood and my humanity and my artistry. They care about me getting my headshots and then me booking stuff so that they could take their fee. So think of it the same
Yeah.
way with literary agents. Like sell yourself and your work and then try to get them to represent you in the best way possible so they could get the highest maximum MG and then they could take their fee and then be done with it. Whereas publishing houses, they would want to work with like a very unique kind of project, especially if they're smaller indie publishing houses. They're more willing to take a risk, and agents don't do that. That's why they say like, oh, this is probably not for us because they are not risk takers. Agents are sniveling fucking, like they're pussies. So yeah, like keep writing the query letters. I think it sounds great, and
Mm.
ultimately it'll help you with your comedy career. That's the thing. Like keep that bigger vision in mind. I sound like a life coach right now. I don't mean to sound like a life
I
coach,
love
but
that.
yeah. No, I would encourage you to get the book out is what I'm saying. Um
Thank you.
okay,
I forgot
that's
that we
exciting.
had like such different energies as people. I just adore
Yeah.
you so much in such a kind of we're just very different people. I do. I
Thanks.
always did. I did from the
Yeah.
first time I saw you, which was before I
Oh,
began
thanks.
comedy.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think it was Gamused, and I saw you, and you were like one of my favorites, and I was like, oh, I love her. And then
Oh,
I think
thank
you went
you.
back to the US, and then you came back, and then I was like, oh, I want to be her friend, and then we did that Women of Color show, Woke Panties.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a fun show. Like whenever I
Such a
feel
fun show.
bummed out, I just bring my mind back to that place and that time
Mm,
and how great it was. Like it was
yeah,
so packed and like the lineup was great. There was some drama,
yeah.
but whatever, took care of it.
We
And
moved through it.
it was like just a warm space and atmosphere. Like the audience, the crowd was amazing. Like, and it was such a small space too, like such an intimate space that
Yeah.
people couldn't sit, so they had to like sit on the stage literally or
Yeah.
on the
Sitting on the floor. Yeah.
stairs. Yeah, sitting on
Packed.
the
Yeah.
floor, like trailing out onto the street. It was like a really special time. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so happy that we got to do that show.
I loved that
Mm.
show so much. I think that night was so good, and yeah, you're right. It was like one of the warmest audiences. And then we did it a couple of times more before the pandemic. I think I saw Carmen, also a Berlin comedian, the other day. She's in
Yeah.
London, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we all missed like all of the women of color. We miss your show because it was like you got the nicest audience. Like it was so ready to be like, we are supporting these
Yeah.
women doing
I know.
comedy."
Yeah. Like that's when you know that the audience does matter. It really
Yeah,
does.
for sure.
Like
Yeah,
the energy that they brought to that room was so supportive and so accepting and so down,
yeah,
you know? And
yeah,
like it
yeah,
makes the comics feel amazing.
yeah. And I don't think they were like an easy sell either. They liked a really dark joke. It wasn't like they were there going like, "Ooh, we're just gonna love." Like they were just here for it when they were here for it, you know, and they were here
Yeah.
for it because we're good comedians. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the lineup that we had the first show, it was like it was a strong lineup too. And
yeah,
yeah, I was like, man, like this stage time feels really good. Like I remember that moment, you know.
yeah.
Um and like honestly, you know, I'm not sure if I ever had that again. Like that good of a feeling where it felt like the synergy with the audience and me was like that on point. Like in that intimate of a space, like, I'm not sure if I ever had that ever again. I mean, that'll be the bar, you know? Like, that's the standard. It's like, is it
Then
like that?
we've got to tour Woke Panties somewhere else, I feel like. Then we've got to tour it in LA. I don't know if we can tour it in England because it would be Woke Knickers, technically. We don't really
Yeah.
say panties here. And Woke Knickers sounds is
That's
insane.
funny, though. Knickers is funny. That's
Knickers!
hilarious. That's funny. Yeah, I think I tried to go to London a couple of times, and I have one contact in London, and she was so, like, not helpful. I would be like, "Hey, like, I'm gonna be in London for a couple nights. Uh, like, do you know of a place where I could ask for spots or get spots?" And her response was always the same. She would always say, "No." It was, like, so fucking, like, harsh. I was like, "Okay, fuck, maybe she's just having a day." And then, like, a year or 2 later, I was gonna be in London again, and then I was like, "Hey, do you know of, like, any producers I could reach out to?" "No." I was like, "Alright, so she's just a cunt, like, she's just a bitch," you know? Like, cause I understand, like, okay, London's a tough scene, but, like, I do stand up in New York and LA, it's a tough scene there too. Like, there are
Yeah.
ways to find shows and stage
Yeah.
time, like, she
I'm
was just
like
being
wondering if I know who
deliberately
this
unhelpful.
is,
Yeah.
but you can message me and I'll give you as much advice as I can give. Like I'm literally like everyone's like I'm happy to dole out the lists of like this is who to ask, this is where I would go, these are my favorite rooms. So if you come
Nice.
to London, we'll get it. But I really want to come to LA. That's like it's literally on my vision board for this year. It's my vision
Oh,
board for this
good,
year.
great. Yeah.
And then there's
Oh,
like
yeah.
Hollywood because I want to go. It's like
Yeah, come to
I've never
LA.
been. I've
Gotta
never been.
come
I
to
want to
LA.
go.
Oh,
Yeah.
you would love LA. I could totally see you, like, living here. Yeah. You know what?
Everyone says
This
I'm gonna hate it, but I think I'm gonna love
No.
it.
Those people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Um, like, okay, there is a part of LA that is very hateful, but that's true of any that's true of anywhere. And you
Sure.
have to be willing to look for the part that you love and focus on that love in order to love
Mm.
that place. Like when I first moved to LA, I moved here in 2015. So that's a long time ago. And I hated it for the first like 5 years. I I hated it
What?
here,
You liked
you
it
know?
since the pandemic is when it changed for you, and you were
Basically.
like,
That's like not even a lie. That's basically the truth. I started loving it more when I was leaving LA a lot. Like when I was going to Berlin and when I was like, traveling a lot, like every time I left LA, I would come back and I would appreciate it more. Be like, this really is the city and town for show business, or this really is the
Yeah.
country where stand-up comedy gets a lot of respect and there are reasons for it. Like so I would start appreciating LA every time I would leave, and then I would see what's out on the other side, and then I would come and be like, okay, now I see why LA's valuable. And weather here is really great, and people here are very productive. Uh, Rent is expensive, but people manage. Um, this is what I kind of see you doing. So like you write your book, right? You get it published, you go to Edinburgh, you do your thing, and then you adapt your book into a TV pilot and then you move to LA. That's what I see you doing. Yeah, yeah. And
Oh,
then you sell it like what's that? She's she has two
I May
shows.
Destroy You.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michaela
It's like
Cole.
that, but yeah, but it's like more lighthearted. I mean, it's dark, but it's like more lighthearted because it's not like too real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, she is dark. Like she fucking
Yeah.
digs, right? And of course
Yeah.
she had to. Like she had a life-altering experience. But I mean, that's kind of what I see for Kate, Like,
Okay.
yeah,
I love that you see that
visit
for me. This
LA.
is a really
Visit
nice,
LA.
yeah. I think I might come, actually, I might come. This is actually a meeting I've called because I want to ask if I can come and see you in October. I think I might come around then
Yeah.
because I've got a friend's wedding in Mexico. So I thought I'd do both.
Oh my God, yeah. Mexico's amazing too. Fuck. What part
Never
of
been.
Mexico?
Mexico City.
Oh my God, you're gonna love Mexico City. You're gonna love
Yeah,
it. Mexico
yeah,
City is amazing. The people there are like so cool. They're
yeah.
so cool. Like everybody there is like cool and like intellectual and artistic, and the food there, like the seafood there is like none other. Shit. Yeah, you're gonna love Mexico City.
Yeah,
And then yeah, and then come to LA.
yeah.
It'll be fun.
That's what I'm thinking. End of next year.
Yeah.
A little bit of LA time.
Great.
See if I can
Great.
jump on some open mics. See if people get my weird British humour and period sex jokes.
You'll figure it out. LA open mic rooms are it could be really atrocious. Really, really, really atrocious.
Okay.
So like let me know in advance like exactly what dates you'll be here, and then I'll try to get you in touch with some like local show producers, and then try to yeah, give you some stage
Maybe we
time
can
in that
see.
regard.
We'll go see if we can organise it with the other women of colour comedians in Berlin to get a woke panties reunion show.
Oh my God. Yeah, do it. Do it. Munich. Do I know
Yeah.
anybody in Munich? I know somebody in Hamburg. Do you know Mimey?
Miami.
Yeah,
No.
she's in Hamburg. She's
Yes, I think we met once, one time, maybe in the middle of
yeah, yeah.
lockdowns.
Yeah, she's a Vietnamese. She's a mom. She's
Mm,
very young. She is like amazing. I love Mimey. Yeah.
yeah,
So if you go to Munich, reach out to her. I'm sure she'll be
yeah,
down. And she's a good comic too. She's funny. Um,
yeah,
and she's like a pleasant person to like have around. She's like rough around the
yeah.
edges, but like very warm, Like, yeah, I love Mimey. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so well, let's finish your vision board thing. Like, what else is on your vision board besides Hollywood?
Well, I only made it
I'm curious.
yesterday, the vision board, but I just
Oh,
had
that's
to. I hadn't
great.
made my
That's great. That's
2022
fresh.
vision board.
Yeah.
It's fresh. So it's random stuff. So this is a picture of Bert and Ernie, and that's only because my horoscope said if you will find the Bert to your Ernie. So I'm looking for the Bert to my Ernie. And
Okay.
that's some kind of like love vibes. Like
Yeah.
someone who's like, they don't have to be romantic, but like some kind of soulmatey kind of
Oh,
partner in crime
yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Hollywood sign, and then like, a little suitcase because I want to go to LA.
Uh-huh.
And then here is like, well, this is a black lady doing some writing. So I was like, that'll be me writing my book. And then
Yes.
this, I didn't
Yes.
know, this is just a sticker that kind of it looks like I just want to go to Pride, maybe. Maybe I want to go to Pride, but maybe also do more like
Uh-huh.
activism-y stuff. And then there's a Vogue magazine because, you can reach the top and like dream that maybe you'll get a Vogue cover this year. I don't know what for. I don't know if they've ever put comedians on the cover of Vogue, but might as well ask for it. And
Yeah.
then here is the kind of London section, which is like I want to find like myself because I've only been in London like a few months, and I want to like really get comfortable here because I'm not like yet really comfortable in London, and I want to find a really
Oh.
nice room to live in because my room's okay, but it's not great. And then these are some
Mm.
cats because I really like cats, and I want to
Yeah.
get a cat. And then these are just some people on a waterfall, and I thought that looked like fun. So that's
Oh,
my
that's great.
2022 vision board.
I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it.
You're welcome. I don't usually tell anyone about it, but I just thought I'd let you know about the LA thing. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm not just
yeah.
saying it. It's also on my vision board. It's a serious desire for me.
You're gonna you're gonna manifest it, as they say in
Yeah.
LA, right? You're
Hmm.
gonna
Yeah.
manifest your vision.
Yeah.
I started making vision boards as of last year, and like to get myself to make it was so brutal. I was just like, oh God, are you doing this for real? You fucking pathetic piece of crap. Like, I was like so resistant to it, you know? Because it's
Yeah.
got like sort of like white lady vibes around it.
Yeah.
And I was so resistant to it, but I was like, you know what? No, this is just something I'm doing because it's fun. It's fun to do. Uh, why
Mm.
the fuck not, you know? And like I made two. I made two last year. And
Yeah.
what I'm noticing is like when you use magazines like Cosmo, Vogue, like a lot of these magazines, like uh it just ends up becoming very like materialistic because there's so many
Yeah, for
like
sure.
pretty things, and I'm like, okay, like things are nice, but that's not quite my vision, you know? Like my
Yeah.
vision is to like, like I don't know, like sell a film, sell a pilot, like get a
Yeah.
touring manager. Like those are the concrete visions that I have, but it's hard to find a picture of that in Vogue and Cosmo. So maybe I have to expand my magazine
I think
selections or something.
you have to be quite interpretive with things. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I was looking for
Yeah.
something that looked like a TV because I was like, I would like for this year to be the first year I get on TV, but I couldn't
Yeah.
really find that. So I was like, all right, well, I could find a picture of a phone. So I'm going to put the phone there and then I'm going to put the Vogue cover there. And it's sort of like a general, I want to be in the media vibe.
Yeah. Yes, yes,
I feel
yes.
like that's all you have to do with that. Yeah. But I
Oh,
agree that
okay.
it feels like it isn't. I wouldn't have done this historically. I've got way more crystal lady since I don't know why, like just more recently in life. I don't know if I'm just like turning into my
Oh
mother,
my
who is a white lady,
God.
but
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
feel like a white woman called like Moonbeam or something would make. Do you know? It does feel like ugh, but like for
It's
some reason I'm
inevitable.
becoming more of that.
I
Um,
know.
I don't. I think maybe it's to do with being single. I don't know. I'm just bored. I'm not getting laid enough.
Maybe it's all of it, but like I also started buying crystals not because of white ladies, even though it is very white lady-ish, but because of my black female friends, and they were like
Oh,
telling me to
love
get
that.
into crystals. So
Mm.
it's a big thing in the black female community, at least in the States. There are a lot of like black witches who are into
For
crystals.
sure.
There are a lot of like um yeah, like people like women into voodoo and shit. So
Yeah.
embrace it, like let your black part
I
embrace that
think
too. Yeah.
I think the thing is, it actually, if you look at it like these kinds of rituals and stuff, they are more likely going to be like people of color. It's going to be black people
Yeah,
or indigenous people because they're the ones that
indigenous
culturally have been
people.
holding
Yeah.
on to them for longer than white people. But like everything
Yeah.
that white people co-opt, somehow
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
become the face of it, even though it's
Yes.
nothing to do with them. But like my
It's
most
yeah.
this felt like a very like what they call it white girl wasted in the US was it was in lockdown. I was living with my
Yeah.
mom. I was getting so very
Yeah.
bored. I one night I just drank an entire bottle of rosé to myself, which feels like a very white woman thing to do. And then I
Yeah.
woke up the next day and I'd ordered myself not one, but two crystal dildos that I was getting shipped all the way from the US to here. And there was like one that was rose quartz and one that was black obsidian. And then they arrived later as a package when I was out the house. And my mum was like, what's in this really like weighty package that's come all the way from the US? And I was like, how do you say to your mum, like, I got drunk and I ordered myself two crystal dildos like a mad lady? I spent like $250. Like, I don't think I should be spending that kind of money on crystal dildos. Like, dear God, Kate. Oh,
Oh my
I feel like it
god.
was
Oh
Black
my
Lives Matter
god.
time though, so it's like, I had to treat myself for all the suffering I was
You
having to witness.
you fully deserved it. And that's so fucking funny, man, because oh my god. I was like, because I got these crystals. I don't know what to do with them exactly. I'm like, what do I do with them? Like, do they just sit there? Do I
Yeah.
put it in a certain corner of my room? Am I supposed to hold them when I meditate? What do I do? But you have such a literal way of using it, which is putting it into your vagina. And it is like, maybe that is the way to use crystals. It's like, nah, you've been all doing it fucking wrong. You want to improve your chakras, stick it up your cunt,
Yeah.
and orgasm. That's
Stick
the
it up your
way.
cunt should be
Yes.
the name of this, like the
Yes.
tagline of this company. Yeah.
Yeah. Stick it up your cunt and then improve your chakras. That is the, like, you've all been doing it incorrectly. This is the only way that works. Fucking hell. That is amazing. I need to look into these
Yeah.
crystal dildos now. Fuck my life. Okay.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, please do. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I need to see this. Okay. I don't want to eat up too much of your time, but let's, I always end these podcast episodes with a series of flashcard questions based on a specific K-drama. You don't have to have seen it. I just tell you, like, a situation, circumstances, character description, and you just say what you would do if you were in this person's shoes. Okay? So,
Okay.
the show that I'm going to be talking about is called Producers. Let's say that you're a young man named Seung Chun, and you graduated from a top rated university in Seoul. And you were supposed to become a lawyer, but instead you decided to become an intern at a public TV network, KBS, to begin your career as a TV producer. And you're just a rookie producer and you have no idea what show business is like or about. You have no sense of decorum in this network space, nothing. Your first assignment is to go to a handful of veteran actresses in their 50s and 60s and tell them that they're all fired. And you go to the most senior actress, Yoon Ye-jung, and you try explaining to her that she is fired, but she cuts you off mid-sentence and tells you that she gets the gist and you don't need to say any more. But later, you realize that she did not know that she was fired, that she was assuming something different. In fact, she was the last to know that she was fired from the show. And now your direct supervisor is in deep shit. What do you do?
Oh my God. This seems like such a complex issue with a lot of backstory. Okay, so has she been fired
She is officially
now?
fired. Yeah. Yeah.
She's been fired. Your producer's in trouble. Are people mad at you?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody's mad at you.
Um, oh my God, I'm just like I can't deal with any kind of conflict as a human being, so this feels utterly painful. Um, I would, and I'm only taking this from an example in my own life when I was working in a pub and I messed something up where
Yeah.
I did a promotion and I sent out promotion emails and I was wrong about prices and stuff.
Oh.
And then everything got screwed up. And also one time when I had to fire someone who worked in a pub, is what I did is buy everyone drinks. That's what I would do. I'd say I would take out the older actress lady and be like, I'm really, really sorry, and buy her like a nice champagne. And then
Wow.
my producer above, I'd be like, I'm really sorry, I messed up. And I'd buy
Yeah.
him a It doesn't matter. Any kind of drink he likes.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Okay. Very good.
I'm British. This is the way we deal with
Oh
stuff
my
in
God.
Britain.
Yes, you are. You are so British, girl. You don't need to explain. Trust me. My God. I'm reading a book right now. You might like it if you're into nonfiction. It's called The Center Cannot Hold, written by Ellen Sachs.
Ooh,
She's a psychiatrist and a lawyer, and she is also a schizophrenic patient. So she
ooh,
writes her whole life about being this very well respected academic and intellectual who struggles with schizophrenia. And there's a period when she spends 5 years in over in Oxford, and it's like like she's from Florida originally, so it's just
yeah,
that she's like dealing with the cultural differences between
yeah,
America and the UK, and she's just like, it's so fucking different. Like, British people
yeah,
really don't want to disrespect you in any which way. It's like they never want to
yeah.
impose. It's really quite severe. Okay, okay,
That's I'm
okay. All
surprised
right.
that you said yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Let's say you're Yejin now. You're a different person. You're a woman named Yejin. You're the head producer of a very well-known live music program. And there's this K-pop star named Cindy who is wearing a see-through top. But you tell
Yeah.
her that she can't wear that on public broadcasting because it's like the censors would lose their shit. So Cindy agrees to wear a jacket over her top. But on stage later, during the live take, she takes off her jacket and she's in that see-through top. What do you do?
Um, as me as Yejin, do I need to kind of reprimand her? Yes. Um,
Well, I'm
Look,
not
I would
saying
take her out
yes.
for a
Like I'm just
drink. Firstly, because I just think everything's easier over a drink.
okay.
And
Okay.
I'd be like, look, I get it. Maybe you're of a different generation than me. We all support Free
Mm,
the Nipple. I get it. I'm
mm,
out here and I feel like, you know what, even women's bodies shouldn't even be sexualized in this way. Like
yeah.
I
Yeah.
spent time in Berlin where people had their tits out in the park and it was fine. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here for it. But the problem is the capitalist world we live in, we rely on sponsors for our TV and we rely on
Oh.
advertisers. And these people want to appeal to conservative families. And unfortunately, this
Mm-hmm.
is just not the game we are playing. So, if there is a way I can support you with you having a see through top in another
Mm,
capacity, but while we're
mm,
in this arena, we
mm-hmm.
have to play the rules of the game and we have to figure out how we can maybe change that on a society level from the inside, but this is not the place
Yeah.
maybe where that can be a thing.
Oh, very diplomatic. That's beautiful. I love that. Uh, very good. Yeah, I love that answer. Okay, okay. Let's say you're a different producer now. You're a man, a male producer. Your name is Raj Mu, and you're the
Mm.
producer of a reality variety series called 2 Days, One Night. It's a very popular show. And you're on the set of the show, and the K-pop star Cindy is acting like a real diva, okay? Like she's not
Oh,
doing certain things that she's told to do. She's like being like just
Cindy's nightmare.
being a diva. Yeah, being real difficult. So you assign the rookie producer, Seung-chan, the one who fucked up with the firing the older
Yeah,
veteran actress ladies.
who I was
You
before.
yeah, you hire Seung-chan to grab her takes. So you assign him to her, okay? And the
Yeah.
two of them get lost for like a whole night out in the woods somewhere. Now, the gimmick on this program is that the star has to play a series of games, and if she wins the games, then she wins a meal. If she continues to win, then she wins like a comfortable night's rest. But she loses all the games, and she doesn't get any food, and she doesn't sleep a wink. But later, you find out that Cindy regularly suffers from insomnia and an eating disorder. and you're plagued by the guilt of this. What do you do?
I Well, I would apologize to Cindy, even though it sounds like Cindy's being a nightmare, and I'm not entirely sure where she got lost, what happened then. But I would apologize, but I would say, Cindy, look, we live in a world which can not often be very, very kind, and the problem, and it's not your fault because we should be more community oriented, aware of these issues. But the thing with stuff to do with mental health is no one's going to look out for you in the end. And you have to, if you have an eating disorder and problems with insomnia, it's really important you don't apply to be on this show. And then I would probably try and hire some kind of mental health coordinator to maybe do more mental health background checks for future episodes.
Okay. You're like an HR lady. Like, you sound like you're like an HR lady slash attorney.
I, I, I think I'd make a great HR lady, actually. Actually, no,
HR
horrible
lady
at conflict
slash
resolution.
yeah, no. HR lady, attorney, and human rights activist, like fused into one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry for the world we live in. It's a really sucky world. But unfortunately, we do live in it and we're going to have to play by certain rules. And that's all we can do to survive. But the nice thing is that we
Yeah.
always get to go out for drinks and we have a good time. So.
Yeah. There's always alcohol to fall back on. That's fun. Okay. Okay.
This
So
is,
now
we're gonna have to trigger
yeah.
warning this one. Like if you're in AA, don't listen to this
Yeah,
podcast.
no, don't listen to this shit if you're an AA. No, it's okay. They're fine. Okay, let's say
Okay.
you're Cindy now. Okay? You're
Yeah.
this famous K-pop soloist, all right? You were a K-pop trainee since 13 years old, so very young. You started your career very young. And everybody thinks you're a hot shot, you're a stuck-up asshole, you're arrogant, whatever. But the truth is, you have a lot of pent-up pain inside of you because when you
Yeah.
were a teenager, your parents died in a car accident and you never got a chance to mourn them properly. In fact, the CEO of your agency, Byun Mi-suk, she told you not to publicize the incident and to continue on with your duties as a pop star for the sake of your public image. And now you're in your 20s and you want to stand up to your CEO, but she's been like a mother figure to you. What do you do?
I think this is actually the hardest one because I think even if your mother figure, if a parental figure or a caregiving figure, I think
Mhm.
it takes years of therapy to realize that your
Mm,
caregiving parental figure might not always, and sometimes not intentionally, have the best interests at heart.
mm, mm.
So in your 20s, I could imagine that would be a real difficult realization to come to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also don't know from experience that confronting that person ever particularly. I read a lot of Reddit threads when I can't sleep at night, and the vibe I get from that kind of dynamic is if it's not, you either have to decide to go no contact or low contact with that person and try and redraw the boundaries. But I think that takes a really long time. And I think if that person is then responsible for maybe your career that you don't want to lose, I don't know, maybe Cindy's over being a K-pop star because
Hmm.
sounds like maybe she wants to live in the woods with Sing-chan.
Yeah.
Is it Sing-chan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Does she want in or out of K-pop? I think that's the real question.
Oh, okay. You would also make a good therapist slash life coach to K-pop stars. Okay, good. Very good. Final question.
Okay.
You're Cindy again, all right? You're hot shit, okay?
Mm.
Everybody loves you. Everybody thinks you're beautiful. You're very adored and very, you know, very much envied, okay? You have a you have a crush on this rookie producer, Sung-chan, okay?
Oh,
But yeah, you have a crush on him. But you find out that Seung-chan likes somebody else. He likes
Oh.
the senior producer, Yejin, the woman you butted heads with at the music show. And you thought, as Cindy, you thought that he had a crush on you because he was so nice to you and so caring.
Yeah.
But it turns out he has zero interest in you as a woman whatsoever. Whoopsie. What do you do?
I mean, it depends. What do we all do when we like a man that, like, I mean, heterosexual people are just the worst, aren't they? But like, oh, I mean, there's a many a game you can play. You can mess around with that situation. I'm not saying I'm
Yeah.
in so like never messing around in a situation. The thing you should do is absolutely nothing. The thing you should do
Oh.
is to leave him be, leave
Mm,
everyone be, and go find
mm.
someone who does like you, or focus on yourself. But
Yeah.
you've been through some trauma. You don't have any
Yeah.
living parents. Maybe you'd
Yeah.
like a man around that you like. So go mess with it. Start some dramas. You're young. You can recover. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
There are definitely
Yeah.
situations I should have left alone in life last week. Let's say that I have not been leaving alone, but that's because I'm a petty bitch.
Ah,
I'm a good-hearted yet petty
yeah.
bitch.
It's okay. You know what? We should allow ourselves to be who and what we are, where we are at in our lives, and still approve of ourselves. Um,
Yeah,
okay.
we all make
All right.
mistakes.
All right. I love that answer. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you, Kate.
And no worries, because the men will be in cages soon, and then she can visit him when she wants in the cage.
Yeah. Yeah. On her own accord, at her
Yeah,
convenience.
at
All
her
right. Very
schedule.
good. Thank you. Thanks, Kate, for making time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice to see you.